He hired me to spy on his wife, but I never expected what would happen next. My life took a dramatic turn the day I walked into Kingdom and Blake Associates. At first, it felt like just another job interview, but what happened in that office twisted my fate in a way I never imagined. Let me introduce myself properly. I'm Clarissa Ford, 28, no rich family, no safety net, just a decent brain, a few admin jobs on my CV, and the desperate need for stability. After losing my last job when the company downsized, I'd been scraping by temp gigs, odd admin work, and praying the rent wouldn't swallow me whole. When I got the call to come in for an urgent interview at one of London's most powerful firms, I thought, maybe this is it. Maybe my luck's turning. I couldn't have been more wrong. The reception area of Kingdom and Blake looked like something out of a billionaire's dream. Glass walls, polished floors, a scent of luxury mixed with cold ambition. I clutched my folder tightly, trying not to look out of place in my worn-out blazer and bargain bin heels. Name? The receptionist asked without looking up. Clarissa Ford. She barely nodded. Mr. Blake will see you now. Mr. Blake? I thought I'd be meeting someone from HR. I followed her gaze to a large frosted door. My heart thumped louder than my footsteps as I walked down the hallway and knocked. Come in. The voice was deep and commanding. I opened the door, and there he was, Dominic Blake.
CEO. Tall. Sharp.
Eyes so dark they made you forget your own name. He didn't rise, just looked me over with a calm intensity that made me sit before he even said a word. Clarissa, he said like we were old acquaintances. You used to work at Wexler Legal?
Yes.
Admin assistant. 2 years. And then, they downsized. He nodded slowly, folding his hands in front of him, then stood and walked over to the window. Tell me, are you good at reading people? I blinked. Excuse me? Do you know how to observe, really observe, without being noticed? I hesitated. I suppose so. He turned to face me, arms crossed. I don't need another secretary. I need someone who can pay attention, blend in, and report back. Quietly. You want me to spy on someone? Yes.
Who?
My wife. The room went cold. My throat dried instantly. I believe she's hiding something. I want to know what it is. Why me? Because you're smart. You need the money. And I think you'll do it. He was right. My account was on fumes, and desperation was clouding my morals. What if I refuse? Then I'll thank you for your time. But if you accept, I'll pay you double your asking salary. He knew exactly where to hit. I looked him dead in the eye. All right, I said. I'll do it. He smiled, not kindly, not cruelly, just like a man who always gets his way. You start tomorrow. That night, sleep never came. What kind of man hires a stranger to watch his wife? And worse, what kind of woman agrees? Still, I told myself I'd keep it clean. Professional. No emotions. No entanglements. But I had no idea just how messy it would get. Because soon, it wouldn't be her I couldn't stop thinking about. It would be him. Kensington. The next morning, I stood in front of an elegant townhouse in Kensington, pretending I belonged there. The job? Simple on paper. Blend into the elite world of Mrs. Serafina Blake. Observe her routine. Report anything suspicious to her husband, my boss. What Dominic didn't explain was how I was supposed to get close to her. Just be useful, he had said, like it was that easy. She's always hiring people. Assistants, stylists, decorators. Walk into her world, Clarissa. She won't even see it coming. So there I was, disguised as Claire Ford, an aspiring interior assistant with forged credentials and a phone that would auto-upload everything I recorded to a private server Dominic gave me access to. Creepy? Definitely. But I needed the money, and honestly, I needed the distraction. The door opened, and there she stood, Serafina Blake. My breath caught for a second. Not because she was intimidating, though she was, but because she was stunning. Tall, graceful, the kind of beauty that seemed both effortless and exhausting to maintain. Her honey brown hair was pinned in a loose bun, eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses despite the cloudy weather, and she wore a silk robe like it was armor. Yes, good morning, Mrs. Blake. I'm Claire. From Elora Design Agency. Your husband said you were looking for help redecorating the guest suite. She tilted her head, clearly confused. He didn't tell me anything about this. I panicked for a second. Oh. He mentioned it briefly. Said you were interested in hiring a fresh pair of eyes to assist you creatively. There was a pause. Then she gave a soft, distracted smile.
Right. Yes.
Come in. That was too easy, I thought, as I followed her into the house. It didn't feel like she believed me, more like she didn't care enough to challenge me. The house was just as I imagined. Large, sleek, and whisper quiet. Expensive art on the walls. Crystal decanters no one ever used. But the deeper I walked, the more I felt something strange, a coldness. Not in the air, but in the atmosphere. Like the house was hiding secrets in its walls. This is the guest suite, she said, pushing open a door. It needs something warmer. I've been meaning to revamp it. I took a deep breath and played the part. Of course. I'll put together some color palettes and ideas for tomorrow. I like to observe the energy of a room before suggesting changes. She laughed lightly. You're one of those spiritual decorators, huh? I smiled. Only when it suits the budget. For a moment, she looked at me closely, as if trying to read the truth behind my calm. Call me Sarah, she said finally. Only people I don't trust call me Mrs. Blake. That shook me. Did she mean that as a test? Or was she just tired of formalities? Over the next few hours, I stayed by her side as she moved through her day. She barely spoke, except to make quick demands, coffee, phone calls, fabric samples. She moved like a woman constantly distracted, her mind clearly somewhere else. Twice, I caught her staring at her phone with an unreadable expression. The second time, I saw a message flash across the screen. Same place,
Same time.
no mistakes. She locked the phone instantly. My heart skipped. This was the moment I had been sent for. Later that afternoon, while she took a call in her study, I crept into the walk-in closet where she'd left her handbag. My hands trembled as I pulled out her phone.
Locked.
Of course. But just as I was putting it back, I noticed something odd. A flash drive tucked into a tiny zipped compartment. That wasn't ordinary. Not for someone like her. I slipped it into my pocket, heart racing, and walked out just as she re-entered the hallway. You okay? She asked. I forced a smile, just admiring the marble. It's beautiful. Dominic hates it, she muttered. Says it looks like a tomb. That was the first time she'd mentioned him, and the way she said his name sent a chill down my spine. That night, I sat alone in my flat with my laptop open and the flash drive plugged in. Most of the files were password protected, but one folder, oddly, wasn't. It was a collection of photos. Not of her. Not of Dominic. Of another man. Tall, rough-edged military type. Sometimes with her. Sometimes alone. Always in public, but always looking over his shoulder. In one photo, they were at a cafe, his hand resting on hers. In another, she was handing him something, a key, and then there was one last photo. A blurry shot. Dominic, looking directly into the camera, like he knew he was being watched. I snapped the laptop shut. What was this? Was Serafina the one playing Dominic? Or was Dominic playing us all?
I didn't know yet.
But I was beginning to realize something. This wasn't about an affair. It was bigger, and I had just been dragged into the middle of it. The next morning, I met Dominic in the underground car park of his company's building. He leaned against his car, as crisp and cold as ever. Well, he asked. She trusts easily, I said. Too easily. It's suspicious. He raised a brow. Go on. I saw a message about meeting someone. I found a flash drive in her bag. That got his attention. I showed him one of the photos. The man. Do you know him? I asked. Dominic's jaw tightened.
No.
But I've seen him before. He didn't say where.
He didn't say how.
Whatever she's hiding, I said, it's not just a fling. His eyes met mine. Intense, calculating, unreadable. I knew I picked the right woman for this. I wanted to ask what that meant, the right woman, but I didn't. I just turned and walked away, heart pounding. Because for the first time since I took this job, I wasn't just scared for Serafina. I was scared for myself. I didn't sleep that night. Dominic's words echoed in my head. It's something far worse. Yet he didn't explain, and I didn't dare press. The next morning, I returned to the Blake mansion, unsure of what game I was in anymore. Serafina greeted me with the same cold elegance, but today, something in her had shifted. Her walls were still up, but the edges had softened. I've been thinking, she said, sipping coffee in the conservatory. Maybe I do want that guest room to feel warmer. Not just stylish, personal. Of course, I said, hiding my nerves. Something comforting. She looked at me, long and hard. Tell me, Claire, what's your story? I blinked. Me?
Yes.
You're new. You barely speak unless spoken to, and yet you watch everything. What's your deal? I forced a laugh. I guess I'm just observant. She raised a brow. Observant is good. It keeps people alive.
I didn't know what to say to that.
Later that afternoon, I followed her to a cafe in Notting Hill. She said she needed to clear her head and told me to join her. I assumed it would be another dull hour of her scrolling through her phone in silence. I was wrong. She leaned in suddenly, voice low. Do you know what it's like to live with someone who watches you sleep? I blinked. Sorry. My husband, Dominic. He doesn't trust anyone, not even himself. He says he loves me, but he checks my calls, tracks my car, hires people to follow me. My stomach turned cold. Did she know? You're lucky, she added, staring at her coffee. You don't have to pretend for anyone. I nodded slowly, heart racing. Then she looked up, straight into my eyes. He told me I was paranoid, that I was imagining the shadows. But what if the shadows were real? I swallowed. What do you mean? She glanced around. Forget it. You'll think I'm mad. No, I said quietly. I won't. That seemed to unlock something in her. There's a man. I knew him before Dominic. Years ago. We were friends, close. Then Dominic came along, charming and rich, and suddenly that man started disappearing. His flat was ransacked. He lost his job, then poof, vanished. I found him again months ago. He says Dominic ruined his life. I stared at her, and, do you believe him? I don't know what to believe anymore. Her voice cracked. All I know is every time I try to leave, something terrible happens. A friend gets hurt. A story gets leaked. A car nearly runs me off the road. My skin prickled. Could Dominic really? And yet, she continued, voice bitter. The world sees him as this powerful, generous man. But behind closed doors, he's terrifying. I couldn't breathe. You're the first person I've told this much, she said. You're just easy to talk to. I faked a smile, chest aching. Back at the mansion, I locked myself in the guest washroom and dialed Dominic. She told me something. I whispered. Something serious. What did she say? She thinks you're controlling. Dangerous. She mentioned a man you got rid of. The line was silent for a moment. Then his voice dropped. She's playing you. I frowned. Is she? She's smart, manipulative, and rehearsed. She knows what to say to seem like the victim. She's done it before. My fingers trembled. So, is any of it true? None that matters, he said coldly. Stick to the plan. I ended the call with my heart torn in half. That evening, Serafina knocked on my door. Come with me, she said. I want to show you something. She led me to a hidden room behind the library, a small office, untouched by the modern luxury of the house. Inside, a locked drawer. She opened it. There were documents, photographs,
Maps. Notes.
all marked in red ink. He tracks everything, she whispered. Even the people I speak to. Even you. My blood froze. A photo of me was there, taken from across the street. I don't know who you are, she said, her voice barely audible. But if you're not careful, you'll be next. And in that moment, I realized something horrifying. This wasn't just a spying job. It was survival. My fingers tightened around the envelope as Serafina's voice echoed in my mind. If you go back to him, Claire, you may not return the same. Her words stayed with me even as I walked away, my legs moving automatically while my thoughts spun in frantic circles. Dominic's version of reality had always been so clean, so confident. But now, Serafina had cracked it open and let the rot show. Back in my flat, I poured everything from the envelope onto the coffee table. Photos, a USB, a folded statement from a hospital, police reports with Serafina's name. I sat back, feeling the weight of the truth pressing into my chest. I played the video on the USB first. It was grainy footage, a camera hidden in a lamp or a wall corner, I wasn't sure. Serafina and Dominic, years ago. She was crying, and he wasn't violent, not in that clip. But he was cruel, his voice low and sharp, hurling insults and manipulations like knives. He mocked her, questioned her sanity, accused her of affairs, all while standing in his pristine suit, untouched. It was psychological warfare. The next clip was worse. Serafina flinched when he raised his voice. She reached for the door, he blocked it. Not with fists, but with a terrifying calmness. The kind of control that made you feel mad for being afraid. I stopped watching. My stomach churned. Dominic had texted again. You disappeared. We need to talk, Claire. I deserve that much. Deserve? I called in sick the next day. My mind wasn't ready to face him, not without answers. But I needed to play smart now. I'd been pulled too deep, and every move had to count. That evening, I showed up at his flat, not with answers, but with questions hidden behind a smile. Where have you been? He asked, pulling me into his arms.
I didn't resist.
Just thinking. Everything's moving fast. He held me close. I know. And I want to tell you something important. Something I should have said before. I pulled away gently. What is it? He led me to the kitchen, poured us wine, and leaned against the counter. I hired you to spy on Serafina, but I didn't tell you everything. I swallowed hard. Like what?
She's not who she says she is.
She's dangerous, Claire. She manipulated me for years. Every bruise she showed you, self-inflicted or exaggerated. I tried to get her help, but she twisted everything. She's brilliant at playing victim. The story was smooth. He made eye contact. No hesitation. No signs of guilt. She tried to ruin my reputation, cost me investors, even clients. And when I fought back, she cried abuse. She's been recording me without my knowledge, pulling strings. I looked down. Why didn't you tell me this from the start? Because I didn't want to scare you off, he said softly. I knew you wouldn't believe me unless you saw her for yourself. I nodded slowly. And now? He stepped closer. Now, I want us to move forward. You're the first person in a long time who sees me, Claire, who makes me feel human. His hand brushed my cheek, and I let him kiss me. But inside, I was screaming. That night, I lay in bed next to him, replaying both their voices, Serafina's warning and Dominic's defense. Who was telling the truth? Or were they both twisted versions of it? Morning brought no peace. I woke up to Dominic on the phone in the other room, voice low, urgent. I don't care what she saw. Just keep watching her.
Yes.
If she steps out of line, I'll handle it. My heart stopped.
He was talking about me.
I slipped out of bed, grabbed my phone, and tiptoed to the bathroom. I sent Serafina one message. We need to talk. Urgently. She replied instantly. Come to my place. Back entrance. I'll be waiting. This time, I didn't hesitate. I left Dominic's flat while he was still on his call. I didn't even pack my things. If he noticed, I'd pretend I'd gone for coffee. But in truth, I was walking away, or trying to, back at Serafina's home. She opened the side door before I could knock. You heard something, didn't you? I nodded. He's watching me now. I overheard him say he'd handle me if I stepped out of line. Her jaw tightened. He's accelerating. He knows you're slipping from his grasp. I don't know what to believe anymore, I admitted, collapsing into the armchair. Serafina sat across from me. You don't need to believe me. Just see the full picture. Dominic doesn't lose. Not without a fight. I think he's starting to fall for me. That's how he pulls people in, she said. He makes you feel special.
Scene.
Like you're the only one who matters. And then he uses it. I stared at her. Why did you stay so long? Because I thought I could fix him, she whispered. But you can't heal someone who benefits from staying broken. Silence hung heavy between us. I looked at the files again, at the recordings I'd seen, at the woman across from me who had once been in my shoes. I need to get out, I said, but I need to do it right. Then you're going to need help, Serafina said. And I know someone who used to work for him. Someone who got out before things turned dark. I nodded, set it up. The next chapter of this twisted game was beginning, and this time, I wasn't walking in blind. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I lay on Serafina's guest bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of the war I'd walked into. Every minute I spent near Dominic felt like a performance, a balancing act on a wire strung between two lies. If I leaned too far either way, I would fall. At 9 a.m. sharp, Serafina knocked lightly and opened the door.
He's agreed to meet, she said.
The man I told you about. But he doesn't trust easily. Neither do I anymore, I murmured, sitting up. She passed me an address on a folded paper. His name is Elliot. He used to run Dominic's PR strategy. He left after things got ugly. I dressed quickly, tugging on my coat like armor. As we walked out, Serafina stopped me. Claire, she said, eyes serious. Whatever he tells you, be ready. The Dominic you think you know doesn't exist. He never did. I nodded, but deep down, I still wanted to believe there was a version of Dominic that was real. The man who made tea in the morning, the one who smiled when I walked in. Was all of that just strategy? The cafe where Elliot had agreed to meet was quiet, the kind of place that served croissants with actual butter and didn't play music. He sat at a corner table, back to the wall, scanning the room like a soldier out of practice. Claire, he said, gesturing for me to sit. I only agreed to this because Serafina asked. I owe her. I appreciate that, I replied, unsure whether to shake his hand or not. I didn't. He looked like he didn't care for such formalities anyway. Let's skip the small talk. You're here because Dominic's showing his colors. You've started seeing through him. I swallowed. Something like that. He leaned back, tapping his fingers on the cup. I worked for Dominic for nearly 6 years. Helped him bury scandals, polish his image, crush competitors. I was good at it, too good. What made you leave? I didn't leave, he said, his voice hard. He set me up. The files on Elliot's flash drive weren't just bad. They were a horror show in corporate format. Emails showing Dominic's manipulation, audio clips of threatening calls, photos of cash handoffs to hush witnesses. And there it was, my name, a folder titled Claire Daniels, Compliance Risk. My hands shook as I clicked. There were surveillance photos of me weeks before we even met. Notes on my finances. A full psychological profile. One file, dated 2 days before I started working for him, simply read, train, use, break. I stared at those 3 words until my eyes blurred. Everything had been a lie.
The job, the charm,
the romance. I hadn't been part of a plan. I was the plan. But he'd miscalculated one thing. I wasn't the girl he could break. Not anymore. I met with Elliot and Serafina in a quiet office Elliot had borrowed from an old friend. We laid it all out, his files, the recordings I'd gathered since the Rose incident, and a plan to expose Dominic for everything he was. You're the only one who can get close enough now, Serafina said gently. He still trusts you. It felt like poison in my mouth, but I nodded. Then I'll use that trust and burn him with it. We planned for 3 days straight. Every move timed. Every word rehearsed. We wouldn't take this to the media, not yet. We were going to hit him where it hurt most, the board. Dominic was days away from securing a new merger that would double his company's valuation. If the board saw the truth before the contracts were signed, everything would collapse. I scheduled a dinner with Dominic, his favorite restaurant, his favorite table. I wore red again. He always liked me in red. He greeted me with that warm, wolfish smile. You've been distant. I leaned in, touching his hand. I missed you. He looked pleased. You're glowing tonight. So our flames before the fire consumes everything, I thought. We ate. We laughed. I let him hold my hand and whisper promises. Then, just as dessert arrived, I slid an envelope across the table. "What's this?" he asked, lifting an eyebrow. "A gift," I replied. Inside was a single photo, the cover of a file with his name on it, and a list of crimes he thought were buried forever. His face paled. "What is this, Claire?" "My goodbye." I stood, kissed his cheek, and whispered, "Check your email in 10 minutes. Then I left. 10 minutes later, Dominic received a secure file dump sent directly to every member of his board. It was time-stamped, verified, and explosive. He called me 17 times that night. I answered none. By morning, it was all over the news. Dominic Reed under investigation for corporate espionage and threatening behavior. Reporters camped outside his office. His company's stock plummeted. The merger collapsed. And Dominic, powerful, perfect Dominic, was arrested in a designer suit with trembling hands. I watched it on the news from Serafina's flat. She opened champagne. Elliot just stared at the screen. "You did it," Serafina whispered. "You actually did it." I didn't speak. I just kept watching. 2 weeks later, Dominic tried to contact me again. A letter this time. Handwritten. "Claire, you were never just a pawn. I meant it, all of it. I hope someday you'll understand." I burned it without reading further. Months passed. The world moved on. But I didn't return to who I was. I couldn't. I found work with a nonprofit that helped women targeted by powerful men. I moved cities, cut my hair, built new friendships. Slowly, piece by piece, I became someone stronger. One day, while walking to work, I passed a cafe. Through the glass, I saw Elliot sipping coffee and reading. He looked up and smiled. I stepped inside and we talked like old friends. Not about Dominic, not about the past, just about books. Life. Possibility. As we stood to leave, he looked at me and said, "He underestimated you." I smiled. They always do. We stepped out into the cold air, and for the first time in a long while, I felt free. Not because Dominic was gone, but because I'd reclaimed the power he thought he'd stolen. I was never just a spy. I was the storm,